All right, welcome to another episode of Collective Conversations. I am your host, Mike Brewer, and I have a very special guest today. But before we provide the introduction, I want to remind everybody, if you enjoy the content, please take the time to rate and review and share us out with your friends. We really, really appreciate that. Our guest today is Adrian DaNila, Regional Maintenance Director for the East Coast for Birchstone Residential. Adrian, welcome to the show.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. I've been waiting for this moment for a while, for a long time. I was hoping to get on your show.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. I know we are talking about a topic today that is both near and dear to your heart and near and dear to my heart. That is the service side of our business. But before we dive into the conversation, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to our audience, both viewers and listeners.
Thank you. So I'm gonna start a little bit with my previous life, right? I was born in Romania, at the time a communist country. When I was 14 years old, I went to high school, living intern, and I lived away from my parents for 4 years, the entire high school period. After high school, I had a year. I tried to get into law school, and I failed the first time. So I went back home to my village, and I was a substitute teacher for a year. And then I tried the second time the next year. I have succeeded. So then I ended up in law school. I studied 5 years. I graduated law school. After law school, I went and I took the bar exam. So I'm actually an attorney, certified attorney. In Romania, I never practiced as an attorney. So that's just a few of, I will say, fun facts about my previous life, right? In 2003, I came to United States with visa lottery, a U.S. government program, and my American dream started right there. It was February 2nd, 2003. I remember that day like yesterday when I first set foot on American soil. A very special day for me. It truly changed my life in ways that I could never imagine, and also I'm grateful for that, for the opportunity. So when I first came to United States, I was not speaking English. My vocabulary consisted of about 30 to 50 English words, most of them that I could not really dare to pronounce on camera. So we basically stayed with a Romanian family at the very beginning for a few months. They helped us get on our feet, get our paperwork in order and everything. And for all this time, I've been attempting to find a full-time job. My dream job at the time was no matter what type of job, but if I could make $10 an hour and have a full-time job with benefits, that would be my dream job for the time. So I've tried. I got a few odd jobs like part-time, seasonal jobs, helper in construction. I've done just about anything that I could do to make a living for the time being, and I kept applying for full-time jobs. One day I met with a friend, a Romanian friend, and he was studying to become a PhD at Georgia Tech. So he said to me, well, you might want to look into their career page because they have a couple of groundskeeper openings. So I went to Georgia Tech career page and I found the openings and I applied, and there was no answer. But the word that really stuck with me was groundskeeper. So the thing that I've done going forward, I really focused on everything that had a label, groundskeeper label. So I would go online and I would just apply for groundskeeper jobs. So about 3 or 4 months later, I've applied for a part-time job through the Department of Labor website page. And they had a part-time groundskeeper job at an apartment community. I got lucky and I got a phone call. So the property manager called me. I went, I interviewed, I got the job. That was one of the best, that was the breakthrough that I needed, really. And this is how I got into property management, into multifamily. I worked at that community for 6 months. And then after 6 months, I was living at a different apartment community. At the community where I was living at, the groundskeeper right there, an older gentleman, he used to come very early every morning. So when I was going to my part-time job, 8 o'clock or 7:30, he was already there doing grounds, being busy. So a few months in, about four or 5 months in, right into my part-time job, one morning, I haven't seen him on a property. So the first thing that came to mind was like, he's not working here anymore. So I went back home after my part-time job and I told my wife, I said, look, something happened with the groundskeeper here. So I'm gonna go apply for his job. So her response was like, you crazy? Like, you're insane? The man might have a, he might have a PTO, he might have a day off vacation, he might be going on vacation. So, I kind of thought about it, well, maybe she's right. So the next morning it's the same thing, right? I'm heading to work and he's not there. When I came back from my part-time job, I stopped at the leasing office and I asked to, speak with the manager, and I asked, is there any opening right here? So the manager told me, yes, we have a groundskeeper opening. So I said, I would love the opportunity to interview. So I interviewed. He gave me the chance, and I got the job. And that was my dream job, $10 an hour, full-time job with benefits. That was one of the best days in my life. And this is how my story started, really. 2.5 years, I moved from groundskeeper to punch tech to service technician to assistant service manager. At that point, 2.5 years later, my company had an opening somewhere else at a different property for a service manager. And I asked my manager, hey, I told him I'll be interested in applying. And the answer was, well, you're not ready for it yet. So I wasn't really given the opportunity to interview. So then I thought about, the best opportunity that you could have is the one that you create for yourself.
Yes,
so
true.
So I went back online, right, and started looking for a service manager opening, and I started applying for service manager jobs. A couple of months in, I got a break. Someone that owned a recruiting company reached out to me and, set up an interview. I remember meeting with her like super early in the morning so I could make it back to my community for like 9 o'clock opening. I think it was 6:30 or 7 a.m. I met with her at Starbucks. And then, we met, she got to know me, and I think she probably saw something in me, some for sure she did. And she said, well, I don't have anything now currently, but I know of a great vice president of a great company up and coming. It turned out that that was great stuff, right? At the time that is growing, they have plans to grow in Atlanta. And if something comes up, I will definitely get you in touch with her. And that did happen. Like a month or 2 months later, she did contact me and say, there's opportunity. So at the time, just so everybody understands, Greystar had 6 properties that they manage in Atlanta.
Now they have
every
property.
they have just about every other property in Atlanta is theirs under management. And they were nationwide. They moved from the 11th place to like 7th place that year, 2006. And they were going to be the next year, the 5th largest company.
Yeah.
So I got that opportunity. Again, super grateful. 18 months in, I was promoted to my first regional maintenance director job with Greystar. So that was a super fun ride and excellent opportunity. And I had really, really good time. And I had opportunity to work with great leaders out there. I learned a lot. And then the economy went bad. So my director position went away. And it was pretty devastating to me. I did not expect. First I didn't accept. How could this happen to me? Because I haven't done anything wrong. Not actually realizing at the moment, right?
Yeah.
That it's not something that I created, I've done. It was strictly just things like that happen all the time. Like I was just not prepared for it. So it took me a while to, get back on my feet. And obviously I had to go back on site. I spent the next 8 years on site positions, large properties mainly, and high profile properties, and multi-site, like 2 properties at the same time, until the next opportunity for a regional maintenance director position came up. Currently at Birchstone Residential, I'm at my 4th director or regional director position in my career. And that's, I will not say in a nutshell, that's the fairly long version of my career and my background.
I appreciate every second of that, and really on behalf of our potential audience here, either listeners or people who are viewing this, because to me it is a testament to, you set a goal for your life, right? For your career. I want a dream job. It's $10 an hour with benefits. You visualize that in your head, and lo and behold, that's precisely what you got, right? But then you didn't stop there. You you worked hard. I imagine you kept your side of the street clean, so to speak. You had good character. You were doing what you were asked to do every day, and then opportunity presented itself, and you went for it. And on one occasion, you had to go for it. You had to make your own opportunity, and you went for it. But it's a testament to any of those of you out there watching or listening. You just work hard, right? Get a picture in your mind. You just work hard. You just keep your side of the street clean, and opportunities will present themselves, or you can go make opportunities for yourself. And that is the nature of our business. If you can rock along for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, opportunities are all over the place as long as you chase them and make them for yourself, where you work hard, and people see you working hard. Adrian, I really want to unpack the service industry. We were talking a little bit before we got started here about how this side of the industry, when I say this side, I don't mean to cause division, but it seems like the maintenance side, or some call it the service side of our business, is sometimes the most thankless position in our organizations, our multifamily organizations, or they're the forgotten people, I think, to steal your term. Let's unpack that a little bit. Why do you think that is, and what can we do as an industry to change that? I know you're doing a lot of work, and I'd love to hear about that, but what can we do as an industry to get on board and change this perception?
So, Mike, that's a great topic, and I'm very passionate about it. Those of you that are knowing me from LinkedIn, that we're connected on LinkedIn, know that I post a lot about this topic. So, what's causing it? I say one of the main causes for the, I guess, maybe lack of attention,
Yeah,
or
that's a good way to put it.
for the maintenance side of the business, comes from the fact that our businesses are ran mainly at a very top level by CFO type of individuals versus like CEO type of individuals. So I'm talking about people that have a strong financial background, and they're mainly about the numbers. So I just learned myself throughout my career that, when you're really focusing too hard on the numbers, you're missing out on in my opinion, the most important part of the business, which is people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy to kind of miss the maintenance part, because the office, the management part is like inside, it's closer. Regional managers always focus on that because they're the ones getting the leases, they're the ones, getting the paychecks. But the part that actually keeps the residents in, that keeps high resident retention rates, uh, gets great surveys, right? Acts
Right.
like a marketing tool for your business, it's maintenance, right? But it takes a very intense effort to realize that and actually live with it, and actually just make a point in just realizing this. Because typically, even though everybody knows the financial impact that maintenance teams have on a property, we talk about it, but it's not really chased as hard as we're chasing occupancy, whether it's physical occupancy or financial occupancy. Like, those are terms that we hear all the time.
Yes.
We're an industry that's driven by those terms, but we're actually not driven by a high resident retention rate. I'm not saying that they're not there, they are there. They're just not on top of the list. So I think those are the causes, right?
Yes.
Now, when it comes to what can we do, I think if I only had one sentence to say, I will say that we have to bring back in human resources.
Yes.
That's what we need to do, in short. Okay, and I'm gonna go into depth a little bit here. I think just literally empathy and kindness are in short supply, not just in our industry, but in our society in general. If we could bring more of that to our groups, at micro level and also macro, I think that alone will change the narrative. Like will change everything in ways that we can't even imagine how impactful that could be. I think companies that will be set up to win will be companies that will really make a point in no one in a management position being allowed to mistreat their employees.
Yes.
Regardless of how high, it could be executive position, you are not to mistreat your employees. Do not. And I think if that becomes a rule of the company and it becomes culture, that changes everything. We put so much the cart before the horse, and we're looking at numbers, when in reality, we should actually look at who drives the numbers and understand that the numbers are really a consequence of the work that's done by our people.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
people. It's people. Another very simple way to put it is treat people well, and they're going to reciprocate. In return, they're gonna be grateful for how you treat them, and they will go and treat your residents well.
That's right.
And this is not like a very deep philosophy type of thing. It's truly just basic human behavior. If you treat someone with kindness, the chances for them to respond rude to you or to be mean to you are very minimal.
That's right.
They feel obligated. If you're the one going at them with kindness and you show them that you care, they're gonna reciprocate. They're gonna respond the same way. So
That's
I think the answer is really in culture. Culture is the number one thing. Secondary, it's not the most important thing. Secondary is competitive pay. Of course, people will really enjoy being in an environment that they really feel valued, but at the same time, we have a financial responsibility to ourselves, to our families. We have to be able to support them, right? So staying competitive is not really one of the things that our industry is very well known for. And I'm noticing that when we discuss pay for service technicians or service managers, everybody is looking at the market in a very static way. The way I look at it, I look at the whole entire market. Who hires in a market period, not just who hires in a property management industry in a market. I ran numbers about a week ago. We had a round table that we just discussed the shortages, and I compare ourselves with HVAC industry, with appliance, with plumbers, with electricians, even with Costco. There's positions that are fairly entry level at Costco. At a warehouse, they're paying more than we would pay a maintenance technician. And then we also require for them to be on call. And everybody that ever has been on call understands the burden that that person has to carry. It's not the fact that they had to get up, but you're basically trapped into a mindset of you always have to be ready.
right.
You always have. I used to when I was on call at times, I used to have my uniforms right next to my bed, so I could jump right off the bed. Sometimes I'll be not changing my work uniforms for a couple of hours from the time I got home, just being prepared, just in case I got a phone call, like in the evening. It could be very stressful at times.
Definitely. There's so much there. It's one thing that I came to mind for me. I'm gonna narrow in on is that it in my head, culture. In order to have great culture, you have to, in my head, have great leaders, right? That subscribe to things like empathy and kindness, and that is really born out of the character of the leaders. And in my head, that is really born out of just understanding that when you have other human beings under your leadership, that is a privilege, and it is to be taken seriously. Like, you are leading sons and daughters and aunts, uncles, however you might describe them, as sort of these other roles they play in their lives. They are human beings, and it is a huge privilege and a huge responsibility to be a leader and actually guide and direct people. And it has to be done with kindness and empathy and sympathy and all those soft sides of business that have nothing to do with numbers, but have everything to do with creating that consequence that you talked about. And it's interesting to me in the sense that it, in the world that we live in right now, you sort of alluded to this a little bit earlier. In the world that we live in now, I know America has lots of things going on in its sort of culture, like broader culture right now, that seem to be putting pressures on everybody. How do you get that day in and day out, when you've got people who are just being crushed by the activity that's happening at the site level from a consumer that is just stressed out? Our residents are stressed out, not because necessarily of us, but what's going on in the world, and they default to taking that out many times, or we do it as team members, take it out on service people. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it ends up coming out, whether it's directed at them or not. How do you keep people inspired and motivated in this type of pressure cooker environment that we're in right now?
I think simply just being there for them physically. Try to spend as much time physically with them as possible. Try to listen, to understand, not to respond. Someone says something to you, don't just immediately produce a response. Take a couple of seconds and try to process first.
Yeah.
And understand, actually, look at the body language, look at the tone of what they're trying to say. A lot of times just the body language tells you a different story than what the person tells you.
True.
Try to get to know your people at personal level. As you said, greatly said earlier, it's a privilege. Managers, and I use this because for the most part, right, we are managers. Leadership is kind of next level thing, but I think that everybody got so much in love with the leadership that we just kind of tend to forget that we got to be managers first. Manage things, and also manage people. Like, I don't think that manager should have such a negative connotation.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think most people like the leadership part more than management, because in leadership you will say, I'm going to get the best out of my people, right? And then in management you have to say, I had to make this much occupancy, this much budget. So the accountability is different, right?
Yes.
Someone could be inspiring and say great things when it comes to leadership, but when it comes to management, there are metrics. Not to say that a person that it's in a leadership position, leadership is influence, really is not a position ultimately. So I'm kind of jumping from one thing to another, because that's another thing that I'm passionate about this. But to your point, Mike, we as managers, we work for our people. It's not the other way around.
So true. So true.
For someone to think that, hey, I got into this management position and all of a sudden I have this many people working for me, it's it's gonna be followed by a wake up call, right? It comes with it's gonna be a very painful experience for that person. It's all I could say. Just realize, just know, or the expectations when we work the long hours, when we put in the extra time. Not to say that we wouldn't want our team members to do the same way, but we have to realize two things. We're not compensated at the same level as we are, and then second of all, if they were just as great as we are, maybe they would have a similar job that we have. They wouldn't be in our team, like reporting to us. So it's about setting the realistic expectations and truly understanding your people. I just want to say one thing that happened to me, and you really, I will say that it had a huge impact. It was probably one of the most impactful stories that I had in my career. I had a gentleman a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, that was coming to a temp assignment from a temp service, and around maybe lunchtime, 2 o'clock, he came to me. He approached me and said, "Hey, could I just take an hour and go home because I have something to handle?" And I said, "Absolutely, of course. You go take care of business." So this is Friday, right? So I went to bed early on Friday. That Friday I was tired, and then I got up super early on Saturday and I checked out my phone. That was the first thing that I did. And there's a text message from him, and in the text message he's pretty much saying, "Hey, I'm so grateful. Thank you. Like, you've done so much for me. Allowing me an hour to go home actually allow me to secure a place to live that I've been waiting for 6 months
Oh,
for
wow.
this place to live." And he said,
Wow.
he said, "Just to I really want to show my gratitude, and if you guys want me to come, I'm not gonna charge you for anything. I'll just come and work for a few hours, like picking up grounds or something on a weekend." And I said, "No, that is really not necessary. I'm so happy that you're able to secure a place. But just think about this. If I was to say, hey, you can't really live, like you had to be here, like without even knowing what's going on in that person's life, how
Yeah.
much I could have impacted his life in such a negative way just by saying no." So it, these things happen all the time on a daily basis. That's why I'm saying know your people, know what they're going through. Of course, as much as you can. You're not going to know them 100%, but know of them, right? And
Yeah.
try to understand what they have going on in their lives. Because life and work, you cannot 100% separate them. There's gonna
Mhm.
be an overlap. And what happens in your personal life is going to influence your work life. And we have to be cognizant. We have to have this awareness, to build our awareness, and just always be on the lookout for signs. Not everybody will come to you and ask for help. Like,
That's right.
people are screaming inside, they're hurting inside. You just don't, they're just not saying it. You have to look for signs. And when you see those signs, you have to pull them on the side and have that conversation and say, "Look, can I help you with anything?"
You hit on something that is just so near and dear to my heart, and that is that often refer to it as when people come to work and they cross over the threshold of the door, right? You open the door and you cross the threshold. Their problems don't magically jump off of their shoulders, so to speak, and hang themselves on a nice little coat rack, right? At the threshold. They carry all that stuff right into the business. And you and I probably the same, right? Things go on in our lives that we carry into the workplace, and maybe we're a little more adept at compartmentalizing it and not displacing it on others, but not everybody. We're not even. I know no one's perfect, right? You bring your broken self to work, and I think you're touching on something that in my head over the next 18 to 36 months, and probably even beyond that, we are, as an industry, and many industries beyond ours, are going to be dealing with a mental health issue of epic proportions. I mean, it's all on the basis of COVID and what COVID has done to the world and people and humans, and it's incumbent upon us as companies, right, to create cultures that speak to directly to what you just said. When you see people who are struggling, and you're totally right, it's their body's going to tell you before their mouth. You got to jump into that conversation, even if it feels inconvenient or not convenient, right? You got to go for it.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah, it'll be important. Hey, I want to make sure I'm going to pivot completely here away from what we've been talking about, because I'm so excited about you doing a podcast, your 321 podcast, or I think it's the 321 interviews. And I've listened to the first episode, and I'm excited to listen to Tara, the second episode that you recorded. I've not listened to it yet, but um, I'm excited because you're bringing a perspective, getting yourself out on LinkedIn. I know you and I shared before you came on, like just hesitation and really running toward a concern that you had. I'd love for you to unpack that, like your hesitancy about doing that, and then tell us about the 321 interviews because you have a unique format. I'd love you to tell the audience about it.
Absolutely. So first, I want to start with my hesitance, right?
Yes.
Obviously, as you and the audience could tell, I wasn't born around here, right? So I speak with an accent. My grammar is not perfect, and there's always been a challenge for me being in front of groups of people speaking freely because I always judge myself beforehand. Hey, how am I gonna be perceived? Am I gonna say things? Am I gonna say words the right way, the way that should be said? I judge myself and I overthink a lot, and I couldn't really get past that. So I said, well, what I've done in life was really facing things heads on when I had fears, and I said I have to overcome my fear of public speaking. Even though podcast is not really public speaking, it's actually meant for a public, whether it's a small public or a large public.
Right.
So that's what really made me. That was one of the reasons why I started a podcast, is like putting myself out there and forcing myself to get better and to own up to my mistakes and hope that I'm gonna produce a good enough content that people will overlook my grammar mistakes and my accent, and they're actually gonna get something valuable. My intent is to provide value to my listeners. Now, as far as format, right? I thought about 3-to-1 podcast. Typically, a podcast or interview is like a one-way street where the person interviewing asks all the questions. So I said, what if I just do it a little different, right? And I'm gonna say 3-to-1, and it's gonna be a short format. I'm gonna have 3 questions for each one of my guests. In return, they're gonna get to ask me 2 questions, and 1 stands for 1 guest per show. So this is how I came up with it: 3-to-1 or 321 interviews. Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And for whatever it's worth to you, I started this podcast that I have like 2013, 2014. I think we're on 1100 episodes. The interview thing is a fairly new thing for us, but it evolved from doing 1100 episodes. And the reason I started it, to your point, is that I was very uncomfortable getting in front of a camera, and I thought the only way to get better at it was to get in front of a camera. So I love that you're doing that for a similar reason.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that, because I've been on and off following your podcast, and I heard you actually saying it. And I said, well, here's the reason why I should be doing a podcast. Just like what Mike said. Uh, that's how you're gonna conquer your fears. You're gonna face them head on, and you're going to overcome. Maybe it's not at the first try, but you're going to overcome. To me, that's the only way. Just trying to avoid, it's just not gonna go well for you.
Nope. Your problems tend to chase you around no matter where you go and what you do. They really conveniently do that. Well, Adrian, I want to give you the opportunity to sort of tie this up or bring this to a close and share with the audience just anything that's on your mind as it relates to an encouraging word, a piece of motivation, uh, whatever comes to mind for you. Certainly share anything as it relates to the company that you work for. Nothing is off limits, but I'd like you to just sort of bring it to a close here for our audience with some of your wise words.
So thank you for the opportunity again. I want to start with the company I work for, with Birchstone Residential. We're not a very well-known company because we're a baby company. We started as a company, as a management company, over a little over a year ago. We're growing. We're growing very fast. I will encourage your audience to just check us out, right, and give us a chance to show that we're a great company to work for. We're trying to build a great culture based on empathy, based on kindness, and on people we're trying to bring in people that care for each other. We're looking out for each other. And I think we're well on our way to achieve that. We have a great team right here at Birchstone Residential. Definitely, we have some great opportunities. I actually just posted something today on LinkedIn about. I highlighted a few opportunities that we have in our portfolio. So definitely encourage you to follow us and direct message me on LinkedIn. If you don't have another way to get a hold of me, I'm making myself available all the time to ask questions, and it's not just about my job. For those of you that reached out to me will know that the first thing that I say is, hey, can we set up a call? I love to actually talk to you over the phone or in person if possible, but because of the distances that, most people are not located where I'm at, we do this over the phone just because I'm trying to understand what are your challenges, whether they're a life challenge or professional challenge, where you feel like you're stuck in a certain spot, you can't really move past that. But if I understand the details, a lot of the things that you're experiencing, I've been through myself, and I could tell you how I overcame. And I've actually had I had those conversations. I'm having them all the time. I'm very passionate about networking and about helping people out. For those of you that know my content, especially lately, I've been trying to amp it up and just kind of create a community of ours, multifamily professionals, where we could actually find that empathy, and we could find that we could find someone that we could talk to. Sometimes it's that simple. Like it's not only a thankless sometimes, I'll say journey, but it's very lonely. The life journey in general is very lonely. We're surrounded by great people, by family, by friends, but then they're not with us all the time. Most of the time, we're right here in our heads by ourselves, lonely. And sometimes you just need someone to talk to. It's that simple. I like to build that type of community where people get together, share experiences, share opportunities, share networking opportunities, career opportunities to make this industry better. I read a couple of months ago, we have a deficit of about 850,000 maintenance professionals deficit in our industry. How are we gonna get 850,000? It's gonna take a lot of work, and networking is definitely great, but then it doesn't have to stop right there, because at the end of the day, the pool of talent is very limited. Our industry is growing while the talent pool is shrinking.
Right.
We are losing a lot of people to retirement. We're losing a lot of people to other trades because we're not competitive in pay. And actually our environment, let's just be honest, completely honest, is more stressful than being any type of worker at Costco or even HVAC or electrical contractor, where it's pretty much your 9 to 6 job and there's nothing after that. Our work is so often 24/7, 365. So how do we overcome that? We actually have to start growing our own. I'm actually super passionate. I've been in touch with a couple of apartment associations here in the Southeast, and I'm hoping to start being involved with some of the programs that they've been developing. But I also say that property management companies should start creating their own. Do not wait on your local association. Just an example, we have a great program right here in Atlanta, the Service Academy. And they turn in like maybe 4 times a year about 10 to 15 graduates. Well, this equals to 60 people. There are companies that have more openings than that in Atlanta alone. So to compete over 60 people that the association is really producing as graduates of the academy is really not a solution, right? The solution is to start growing your own by doing outreach campaigns. First of all, reach out to high schools and go to the kids, not in 12th grade, but go to them in the 10th grade, when they're in 10th grade. explain to them, use examples. I'm sure, Mike, you have a great story, or how you came up in an industry. Share your story. Show them that there's a path. If a person like you has succeeded in such a big way, okay, use personal example, personal stories to exemplify, to show them that there's a real path. This is a career. It's not just a job. I'm gonna get a job as a groundskeeper. No, this is where you start, but this is where you could end up.
Yeah.
You could make it for yourself in ways that you couldn't even imagine. You can't even imagine. But if we're not doing this, people would not know that the opportunities are real. I know the president of the company that I used to work for that started as a groundskeeper. I know the CEO of the company that started as a leasing agent. And there's so many examples like that. We need to use those examples. Go out there. Women are a category. They're 50% of the population. We have a very few women in the industry. I would love to bring, our female partners into the industry and make them interested in starting and developing a career. Okay, military personnel is another great category. They have great discipline. They have something that's been built during their service, and when they transition back into the civilian life, it's not necessarily a very well built path. And we could come and say, hey, we're coming to you. Why don't you come learn about our industry, maybe start a career right here in the industry? And this could be a career, a very lucrative one for that matter, for the rest of your life. So those are a few things that I'm really passionate about, and I'm spending all of my spare time right outside of work, trying to get projects off the ground, to become involved, to be part of the projects. And I also wanted to tell your audience, if we do want to change, right? Everybody wants change. I think everybody really acknowledges that there's a change that's needed in our industry, right?
Yes.
I say, if you truly want the change, you have to become the change.
Yes.
You can't expect the change from anyone else. I don't care what anyone else's position is. CEO or president of the company or vice president, you can't really expect from that person. Start with yourself.
That's
and
right.
you'll be amazed of how much of a difference one person could make. Not immediately. A single person could make a world of difference. Imagine how much 10 people could do, 100 or 1,000. What kind of movement would that be? How much would that bring into our industry? Excitement and just hope for the future.
That's so right, and such a great point. It's such a great point to sort of tie up our conversation, and I can't applaud you enough for what you're doing, and I mean that. And if there's a way that we can partner with you in some way to build this movement, we're on board. I mean, I think this is a testament to those of you out there in the audience. I work for a property management company that's based here in Atlanta. And so does Adrian, right? But I don't look at this as a competing relationship. It is two people passionate about building an industry, right? Or building a multifamily space that is attractive to people that are in need of a
I think you're muted, Mike. Mike, can you hear me? I cannot hear you. Can you hear me? I cannot hear you for some reason.
I'm going to go ahead and stop record, and I'll call you back in a minute.
No, I can actually hear you now. I'm not sure what happened. So
Okay.
I guess if you want to go back to like the last part that you were saying, and you could, edit later on, because that was the part that I missed when you were actually saying that, we're not actually competing, and we're actually just two individuals, two professionals in this industry, that we try to make it more attractive. And I haven't, like, I couldn't hear you after that.
Yeah, that's basically where I stopped, is that we're not, I don't consider this a competition. It really is two industry professionals just trying to provide a space for people to come and thrive, right? And to the extent that we can do that together, we're here to be helpful in the process.
I think that'll be wonderful. It starts with the two of us. Well, there's more of
There's
us
more.
already, right?
That's
But
right.
we just gonna start a new, I guess, a new partnership. I'll call it that way. With maybe speaking up, making, just making it public, voicing it out. The more voices, the better.
That's
And
right.
also start some meaningful programs, because it's, making it public is one thing. It's a great, start. But then how do we get to the execution part? I hope that companies like, obviously mine and yours will start. We're actually talking about starting some internship, programs, and then we could make it really meaningful, not just a formal thing, as far as, we're gonna check some boxes, and on the other end we're gonna push some people through. On the other end, we're gonna end up with service technicians, because the reality is it's a lot harder than that.
True statement.
Yeah.
Well, Adrian, I thank you for your time today. I can't wait to publish this and put this out into the world and share it up. But thank you for your time today. I truly, truly appreciate it.
I appreciate the invite, Mike. I was super excited to come. I would love to do another one soon. There's just so much to talk about, and I think it's the conversation that's very much needed for all of us out there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We'll do it again sometime. All right, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you again next time.
Thank you, everybody.